Hi, I'm Sky Alton. Welcome to Everyday Amazing. Here I interview inspiring people with amazing stories to tell. Today on the show, we have a very special guest. I'm excited to have her as my first guest of 2022. Without further ado, Mary Hansen. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be back in the studio. I'm glad that you are my first guest for 2022. How do you feel about that?
I'm really excited. I mean, it's just such a privilege to be here with you. You know, we've got this history together, and you're so successful, and it's just amazing. I'm so glad.
I try. I'm getting there. I'm working towards.
Yeah, one step at a time, right? This is a great step.
Well, for those of the people out there who don't know, maybe give a rundown a little bit about what you do and how I know you.
Okay. Well, I'm the nurse at Folsom Lake College. I'm the first nurse. I started in 2008, and I kind of created the Health and Wellness Center, okay. Which is now we call it the Student Health and Wellness Center. And gosh, I think it wasn't too long after I started that I met you on campus, and yeah, we just got along great.
Yeah, I would say, I think at that time, I was still figuring out a few things, and I was adjusting to college life, and I think at that time, I don't even think I was a communications major. I think I was still trying to figure out what I really wanted to do at college. And a professor recommended that I go talk to you because they told me she's a really good person, and she's really welcoming, and I think you need to talk to her, and to me that was
Wow.
a kind of a big deal to me, because I'm like, a need, and like, well, let me see who I need to talk to, and I remember going and introducing myself, and you were very welcoming, and you were very patient, and you took your time to kind of like listen to me, and from there you became the go-to person. Anything that I want to talk about, and anything that was on my mind, whether it be school or personal stuff, you were the person who really kind of helped me work through a lot of things. And so, but it's not just me, right? And that's why I wanted to have you on here, is because you do that for all the students, on campus. And so I guess you do really good. And I guess one of my first questions I want to ask is, what did you always know that you wanted to do this type of work?
Well, that's a funny question. I remember I have this notebook that I still have at home from when I was like 5 years old. My aunt was a nurse. One of my cousins was a nurse. And I wrote how I wanted to be a nurse. And I had this idea in my head that to be a nurse, you have to clean floors and scrub hospital floors and make beds. I didn't know too much about patient care,
right.
But I knew that someday I wanted to be a nurse, And then when it came time to go to college, I spent 2 years pre-nursing, but I wasn't ready yet. I didn't actually become a nurse until my mid-30s.
Okay. Well, so what?
It took me a while.
Why do you say you weren't ready yet? What was it? Was it experiencing, or did you know that you weren't ready?
Well, nursing is like a real caring profession. Mm-hmm. And I feel sort of like you have to have some kind of a calling to put yourself out there and give yourself to people. You know what I mean? In whatever way, whatever kind of a nurse you are. And so when I was 18, 20, I just wasn't ready for that kind of selflessness, that it takes, the giving part, the caring part. I was just too into me and all the exciting things that life had to offer,
But first of all, that is amazing that you were able to realize that, at that age, because in my 20s, I don't think I was that selfless. I mean, similar to what you're saying, that like you knew that you weren't ready. I don't think a lot of, not just me, but a lot of young people in their 20s put two and two together. Some do, like you, but I feel like, you know, in your 20s, you know, you don't know what's going on and you're trying to figure a lot of stuff out. So, you know, you may think you have it all figured out and you may not. And so the fact that you were able to realize that, you know, at that age, like, no, you know, I need some more experience and I'm not quite ready to give my all and to be the best me in this field I think is amazing. I think that is a testament to your character and also why, you know, helps, you know, mold who you are. So, okay, so you weren't ready yet, and so you wanted to get more experience, and then from there, just kind of walk me through like your journey. Like how was the journey of getting that experience?
Oh boy, it was a long journey, but I guess the first thing that you said, you know, about your 20s really applied to me because I wasn't ready to commit myself to anything, and so. You know, I'd spent 2 years in college and I was just like, I don't know that I want to be a nurse yet, so what am I going to do? And I love to travel. And so I lived in the Bay Area, and in San Mateo, one of the airlines had their base. It was Hughes Air West. And so I applied, and in the meantime, I had my fingers in a lot of other things. I had a backup job as a personnel assistant, you know, at a insurance, you know, company. Okay. And they were just about ready to hire me when I got a letter, you know, accepting me to be a flight attendant with Hughes Air West. And I'm like, I really do want to travel. I'm sorry. Thank you, though. I'll be back if it doesn't work out.
A smart decision.
Yeah. And so I did go with Hughes Air West, and I had a great time as a flight attendant. Everything was changing in the industry then. You know, during that time, the phone companies, because my husband worked for the phone company, the airlines, a lot of companies were being dysregulated, meaning that they used to be regulated where they had to all charge the same fares, you know, and you know how nowadays it's so competitive, right?
Yes.
Yeah, in those days it started out being that way, but after about a year or two, I think President Reagan deregulated everything. I'm not sure if that's exactly the right word, but basically that way airlines could compete against each other.
Got it.
So what happened is all the airlines started merging together. And so I went from Hughes Air West to Republic Airlines.
Wow.
And then Republic Airlines became Northwest, and then Northwest became Delta. But at the time that it became Northwest, that was 7 years into my flight attendant career, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I had a kid at home. By then I had my son Kent, and I knew I was going to have, you know, another kid before too long, and so I was more into being a wife and mother, and I stopped flying. Yeah.
So you were ready to, like, I mean, pretty much you say we were ready to settle down. You were ready.
Yes.
You kind of pretty much got it out of your system. You had seen a lot of places, I assume, and met a lot of people and had a lot of different cultural experiences. You know?
And I forgot to mention, I lived in this area, in the Sacramento area, but I commuted to like Colorado or Detroit, Michigan or Minneapolis just to go to work.
Wow.
So it got to be pretty insane after a while. You know, you do that for 7 years, you're like, I just want to relax and not have to worry about catching a flight, you know. So yeah, that's how it came to be that I stayed at home. Yeah.
Okay. All part of the journey, right?
All part of the journey.
So, okay, my next question, I think for people out there will really want to know, nursing, as you know, is a very popular field right now. A lot of young people are trying to get into it. So what advice would you give to a young student looking to get their foot in the door and pursue this field?
That's a great question. I would tell them you have to really want it. You know, not for the money, not for just because you think it might be a good thing to do. You have to really want it. Just like me, when I was 18, 20, I'm like, I don't really want it enough. You know, I'm not there yet. So when I was in my mid-30s, well, I guess I was around 30 when I went back to school to be a nurse. I remember vividly wondering, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Because my youngest, Kevin, had just gone to preschool, so I had free time.
Right.
And I wanted to contribute to our finances, and I'm like, what do I want to do? And I remember looking in the newspaper, and at that time, they really wanted nurses. And I saw this article, and it felt like a brick had hit me on the head. Nursing.
Right.
That's what I want to do. Hello. And so, I went to school, and I realized my family's putting a lot of money into this, so I better do good. And I did. And graduated with honors. And
Wow.
I was lucky because at that time, the whole concept of nursing changed. They went from nurses doing just about everything in the hospital to nurses, registered nurses, especially bachelor's prepared nurses, which I was, to be more supervising.
Got it.
And so they didn't need as many of us. And so I remember I went in with my resume to all these places that I thought would snap me up, and they weren't interested. And luckily, I already had a job at Sutter Memorial Hospital in their labor and delivery, and they heard that I was looking, for a job. And a lot of my friends were getting jobs wherever they could. I really wanted to work in that hospital, and a job opening came in the neonatal intensive care unit, and so that was my first job.
Okay.
So you really got to want it, because if you don't want it, there's so much competition out there right now to get into nursing school. You have to want it and be focused on that, and you have to be willing to put your all into it and not accept failure.
Got it.
Because nursing school is a very rigorous program. And if you don't really put your all into it, and if you don't really want it, you're not going to make it through. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing that you bring that up about really wanting it, because, like I said, a lot of students are looking to go into that field because for various reasons. There's some people like you who really want it and want to help people and feel very passionate about it. And then, there are some who they hear that it's a field that's in need, right? And so then they say, okay, well, I want to be able to get a job, so I'm just gonna go to whatever people need right now. But that's not the easiest thing to do, right? Because if you don't want it how, like you said, you wanted it, then you're not gonna make it through, and also you're not gonna enjoy it, right? You're not gonna feel satisfied.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important, especially in this time, right? Like we hear about a lot of people are asking that question, like what brings them joy, what makes them satisfied, and so we have a shortage in workers, right now, but because of that, because people are starting to think like, okay, well, what is it that I really want to do? And so, similar to what you said, I definitely agree. I think that's very important, where people need to really think about what is it that really makes them happy and pursue that, Money is very important, right? We all need it to make a living, but if you really dislike what you do, it's not going to mean as much, right? And so I think that's very great advice, so I hope,
I think the nursing profession is kind of strange in that, as you said, they really need nurses. But the other side of that is it takes so much time and money to train nurses. They want to get the cream of the crop, right? And so they make it very rigorous. But when you have nurses out there, they have to go through all of this. When they finally graduate and they get their first job, they're well prepared. And that's a good thing, because you don't want somebody who's not well prepared taking care of you when you're in the hospital and you're sick.
No, we do not. I'm glad you said that. For people out there watching, next time you encounter a nurse, just be a little extra nicer to her. We all should, be nicer to the nurses out there. And I know sometimes, especially like at hospitals, I sometimes feel like they don't get all the credit they deserve. And I get it. When we are there to see, we want to see a doctor and we want to check on our loved one. Sometimes we can be a little bit impatient, right? And we don't always, pay the nurse the respect they deserve, or sometimes, nurses, because of the shifts they work, they may not always be the friendliest to you. You might catch them on at the end of their shift, but I live by this model: if everyone does a little, no one has to do a lot. And so the point I'm trying to make is we should all be a little bit kinder to our nurses out there. So for my next question, we already covered about what students should, some good advice, what students should look forward to if they're pursuing the field. But, since, things have changed so much, I want to ask you, like, what has been some of the biggest changes you've seen in the field that good or bad?
Well, the pay. I mentioned my aunt's a nurse. When my aunt left nursing after 40 years, she really had no retirement.
Wow.
It wasn't a high-paying profession until maybe, I would go 20, 30 years, maybe 35 years.
Okay.
So she ended up retiring a little while after I became a nurse. And the pay had increased exponentially. A lot of the reason for that is because men started going into the profession and started saying, why, we really need to make more, and women were like, we do, And so eventually, we started demanding more. We started realizing we're worth more, we do a lot of things. So I think that's the biggest thing that changed in like the last 40 years is the pay has become a lot better, and it's become a more competitive field for that reason. Other things that have changed, well, I guess I could say this. I could say nursing is an amazing field if you're not really sure exactly what you want to do. And so you get trained to become a nurse, you're ready to kind of do anything, and then you fall into whatever, for me, it was the first job I could get, right?
Right.
But it was in an area that I really wanted to do with babies. But you have to be willing to really follow your heart. And so for me, that meant after 5 years in the nursery, I realized, gosh, I love these babies, the little premature babies, and they're so sweet and beautiful. But I was ready to move on and have another challenge. And so for me, that involved going to the next step, which was working with the county. And I did that for a while. So you have to, I guess what I'm trying to say is be open to something new. Because if I hadn't been open to something new, I would never have found the job I have now. I had no idea there was even such a thing as a college nurse. So if you leave yourself open and you're not committed to staying in the job that you're in forever and ever. Maybe you fall into something that you love, that's great. Stay there forever if you want to. But if your heart is, because nurses get burnt out. You know what I mean?
I can imagine.
So if I'd stayed in the nursery, which was an amazing place. The nurses were so helpful and collaborative. I'm sure they still are wherever they are. They just inspired me so much every day. But I knew it wasn't for me forever. And so I answered that call in my heart and I moved on. And I kept answering that call. So I went from one job and I'd stayed there for a while and I learned the ropes. And when it didn't call to me anymore, I moved on to something else. And I stayed there for a while. And that's the beauty of nursing, is you can move around and experiment with what you like, right? And eventually I found myself answering an online posting for college nurse, because I'm like, that sounds like the job for me.
That was your next that was the next step of your journey.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that. How did you answered that, and what was that first year like?
Oh, it was awesome. I was able to use my imagination and my creativity and kind of create this health and wellness program out of nothing. Wow. Because basically we had very little money to put into it at Folsom Lake College at the time. We were just beginning a recession, as you remember, from 2008 to whenever. Yeah. And, I was constantly being told, you have to make do with what you have, but I wanted all this stuff, but, we had to make do with what we have. So as you know, it was my office and the room next door, and that was health and wellness services at Folsom Lake College.
I remember.
Yeah, and it was worth waiting, because now they're building a new one. And so it's going to, be 2 exam rooms and 2 offices and just a whole area devoted to health and wellness. But that first year was so exciting because, I could just make it whatever I wanted. And I collaborated with, so many people on the campus who had ideas. And we just, we made it work. Like the nutrition professor and I, we did these things like food for your brain, food for your heart. And we would have everyone come in and cook together.
Okay.
And make these incredibly healthy things, and
where was I when this was going on? I don't remember this. That would have been amazing.
In all fairness, it was mostly for the staff. We have something in education, they have where the teachers teach each other.
Got it.
Okay, so I'm faculty too, and so I'm a part of that. They call it flex activities, and during those activities we would do these food for the brain and all that stuff. We had a ball. We do health fairs on the campus. You probably saw the health fairs when they were there.
I definitely remember the health fairs.
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of things. We still do, and we have a lot of fun. But through the years, I think the recession, that first year was very special, because I got to be totally creative. But then the recession came and everything shortened, right? I had less and less and less. And so the other thing that came during the recession was people who were really depressed and unhappy. And so I found myself just talking to students more than anything. That's what they needed.
Wow. All right, well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back after the break and we'll continue with Mary Hansen. Before we went to break, you were hinting about so many students being depressed. Can you touch on that real quick?
Well, it was amazing to me, community college. I think a lot of the students that go to community college are kind of, they're doing what we were talking about earlier. They're trying to find themselves. And if they're not really doing well in their classes and they're not being successful in college or something goes wrong, they're young, most of them are young, and so they just don't know how to get through it. And I don't know how, but a lot of them find their way into my office. And they just, they see it says college nurse. Okay, nurse, we're the most trusted profession, right? And they come in and they sit down in my chair and I'm like, hey, tell me about what's going on. And we just have a conversation in my office. Sometimes we close the door because it gets personal. And we just talk together and I try to listen. I try not to give advice because they don't really want advice. They just want to be heard. And I look for little clues from the students because I think they have all their own solutions to their problems. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense.
So we'll have a conversation and they'll say, and maybe I should do this. And I'll say, well, tell me more about that, And they'll open up about how, they think that this would really help them if they did that. And I'm like, yeah, let's go with that. Why do you think that would help you? And, my goal is if they walk in my office, and they grab for the tissues or they're very depressed and, withdrawn, my goal is for them to leave that chair smiling, feeling better, and walking out of there not as depressed as they were when they walk in. Some I'll see again and some I won't. That's just the way. I figure if I don't see them again, they're probably doing okay. Or they found someone else to talk to, But I always have a good time. I learn as much from the students as I think they learn from me, probably more. Yeah.
You said they find their way into your office, and I can attest to that because I was one of the students who found my way into your office. And I think, it's your energy that brings them to your office. They don't know it, but I think it's the energy you put out there and the genuine sincerity of wanting to help people that a lot of people sense when they first walk in your office. And like what you just said, how you allow the students to talk about what's on their mind, and you just listen, right? Like, you're not there to necessarily give the answers, but allow them to kind of discover the answers for themselves. I think a lot of students kind of need that, right? I mean, college is stressful,
Yes.
And people who go to college come from all different walks of life, dealing with all different, personal and professional problems. And I think, having a place where you can go and vent and just work out some of your issues
Confidentially,
I think is part of what makes Folsom Lake great, and all the community colleges that have a wellness center. I want to thank you so much for finally taking the time, and for me to finally be able to have you here.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And I want to say to our viewers out there, any students who go to Folsom Lake, be sure to drop by the Wellness Center. And if you have any questions, you can reach Mary Hansen. Her contact info is definitely on the FLC website, I believe. And I hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you guys next time. Hi, I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you know of any amazing people who you would like to be on the show, please reach out to me at Sky_Alton on Instagram, and also check out the show on YouTube at Everyday Amazing with Sky Alton. I'll see you next time.